Welcome, dear listeners, to The Shadow Behind You, the channel where the veil between the living and the lost grows thin, where forgotten bloodlines whisper their grievances from the soil, cursed institutions crumble under the weight of their own secrets, and vanishing families, well, they don't just disappear. They linger, in the corners of your room, in the rustle of leaves outside your window, in the chill that crawls up your spine when you're alone. Tonight, we delve into the mist-shrouded hollows of the Ozarks, that rugged spine of America where the earth itself seems to hold grudges. Our tale 1860, Ozarks, the forbidden curse of the Holloway family, erased from official history. Imagine a family prosperous yet isolated, swallowed whole by the mountains they called home. No graves, no records, just echoes of a curse that dares not be spoken aloud. But we will speak it. We'll peel back the layers of silence, layer by chilling layer, until the truth, or what's left of it, stares back at you. Settle in, dim the lights, and remember, in the Ozarks, the shadows don't just follow you, they lead. Picture this, it's the autumn of 1860. The air in the Missouri Ozarks hangs heavy with the scent of decaying leaves and wood smoke, a perfume that clings to your skin like a shroud. The hills rise like the spines of buried giants, cloaked in forests so dense they swallow sunlight whole. Rivers carve through the limestone like veins, cold and unyielding, whispering secrets to the rocks. This is a land where the boundary between the natural and the unnatural blurs, where folks speak of haints and bogus in hushed tones around flickering hearths, fearing that naming them might summon them forth. In this primordial wilderness, the Holloway family carved out their existence. Elias Holloway, a stern patriarch with eyes like chipped flint, had led his kin from the crowded valleys of Kentucky in the late 1840s, seeking fortune in the untamed Ozarks. They settled in a remote hollow near what is now Douglas County, a place locals called Whispering Gap, for the way the wind moaned through the karst caves like the laments of the damned. Elias, his wife Miriam, a woman whose beauty was said to hide a sharper wit than any blade, and their 5 children, the eldest son Jeremiah, strong but brooding, daughters Eliza and Abigail, twins with hair like raven feathers, young Thomas, curious and foolhardy, and the baby, little Sarah, whose cries in the night seemed to echo prophecies. The Holloways prospered at first. Elias traded in furs and timber, his axe biting deep into the ancient oaks that had stood sentinel for centuries. Miriam tended a garden that bloomed unnaturally vibrant, yielding herbs that healed ailments no doctor could touch. Whispers spread among the scattered homesteaders. The Holloways had the gift, or perhaps the curse, but in the Ozarks of 1860, such talk was common coin. Superstitions wove through daily life like vines through a fence. Folks nailed horseshoes above doors to ward off witches, carried buckeyes to repel rheumatism, and avoided crossroads at midnight, lest they meet the devil himself. Yet something darker lurked in Whispering Gap. Elias, in his relentless quest to tame the land, unearthed something he shouldn't have. While blasting a new well into the karst bedrock, his pickaxe struck not water but bone. Human bone, ancient and etched with symbols that twisted the eye. Artifacts of the Osage people, perhaps, or something older. Relics from a time when the hills were alive with spirits that demanded respect. The Osage legends spoke of such places, cursed grounds where the veil thinned, and the blue man, a spectral wanderer, half human, half beast, guarded forbidden knowledge. Elias, pragmatic to a fault, dismissed it as savage nonsense. He pocketed a peculiar amulet, a stone carved with interlocking spirals, and continued his work. That night the winds howled fiercer than ever. Miriam dreamed of shadows coalescing into forms with glowing eyes, whispering promises of power and warnings of doom. Jeremiah, out tending the livestock, saw a figure in the tree line tall, cloaked in blue mist, its howl piercing the soul like the cry of the Ozark howler, that legendary beast said to herald death. The family shrugged it off as mountain fever, but the seeds of the curse were sown. As weeks turned to months, anomalies mounted. Crops withered overnight, leaves curling like clenched fists. Livestock vanished. their bones found scattered in patterns that mimicked the amulet's spirals. Sarah's cries turned to babbling in a tongue no one recognized, ancient, guttural, like the earth's own voice. Neighbors, already wary in these pre-Civil War tensions, began to avoid the Holloways. Rumors flew Miriam was a witch, brewing potions from forbidden roots. Elias had made a pact with dark forces for his prosperity. And the children, they were changing. Eliza and Abigail spoke in unison, their eyes glazing over as if possessed. Then came the vanishings. First, a trapper named Old Man Hargrove, who traded with Elias, disappeared after a visit to Whispering Gap. His cabin was found empty, save for a single spiral etched into the hearthstone. Then, a family of settlers passing through, the Millers, camped near the Holloway land. By morning, their wagon stood abandoned, horses gone, and faint howls echoing in the distance. The Holloways denied involvement, but fear festered like an open wound. By winter's eve, the curse tightened its grip. Elias fell ill, his skin paling to a ghostly blue, muttering of the guardian that demanded repayment. Miriam, desperate, turned to Ozark folk remedies, charms of a sapphire and silver, incantations whispered under the full moon. But the mountains seemed to rebel. Caves groaned like living things, and the rivers ran black with unexplained silt. The family isolated themselves, boarding windows against the encroaching dark, and then, one blizzard-swept night in December 1860, they were gone. Search parties from nearby settlements braved the storm, finding the Holloway cabin intact but empty. No signs of struggle, no footprints in the snow, just the amulet left on the table, pulsing with an inner chill. Records of the family, deeds, census entries, began to vanish from county ledgers as if erased by an invisible hand. Locals spoke of a cover-up, perhaps by fearful officials, or something more sinister, the curse itself, devouring history to protect its secrets. Why was this erased? What forbidden knowledge did the Holloways uncover that demanded such oblivion? As we journey deeper into this tale, prepare yourselves. The Ozarks hold their grudges tight, and some shadows, they follow you home. Let us step back, dear listeners, into the crisp dawn of 1848, when Elias Holloway first set foot in the Ozarks. The air was alive with the chirp of unseen birds and the rustle of leaves that seemed to watch his every move. Elias, a man forged in the forges of Kentucky coal country, was no stranger to hardship. Tall and broad-shouldered, with a beard like tangled briars, he drove his wagon train through the winding trails, his family huddled against the chill. Miriam rode beside him, her green eyes scanning the horizon, a rifle across her lap. The children, Jeremiah barely 10, the twins Eliza and Abigail giggling in the back, Thomas toddling, and Sarah not yet born, dreamed of a new life. They claimed a fertile hollow, dubbing it Whispering Gap for the constant sigh of wind through the fissures in the earth. Elias built their cabin with his own hands. Sturdy logs chinked with mud, a stone chimney belching smoke like a dragon's breath. The soil was rich, yielding corn and potatoes in abundance. Miriam's garden flourished with herbs, yarrow for fevers, foxglove for the heart, and stranger plants she gathered from the deep woods, mandrake roots that screamed when pulled, and nightshade berries that gleamed like poisoned jewels. Life settled into a rhythm, but the Ozarks whispered warnings. Neighbors were few grizzled trappers like Hargrove, who spun yarns of the Blue Man, a feral spectre sighted since the 1830s, roaming the hills with eyes like sapphires and a cry that curdled blood. He's the guardian of old ways. Hargrove would rasp over moonshine. Disturb the bones, and he'll come callin'. Elias laughed it off, but Miriam felt it, a prickle on her neck as if the land breathed. By 1855, prosperity bloomed. Elias expanded, hiring hands to fell timber for the booming St. Louis markets. Jeremiah grew into a strapping youth, his hands calloused from the axe. The twins, now ethereal beauties, helped Miriam with cures that drew pilgrims from afar. Thomas explored the caves, bringing back glittering quartz that caught the light unnaturally. Sarah arrived in a storm, her birth marked by thunder that shook the foundations. But cracks appeared. Animals acted strange, cows lowing at shadows, dogs howling at empty air. One night Jeremiah chased a rustler into the woods, only to return pale, muttering of a howling thing, with horns and shaggy fur. The Ozark howler folk said, a demon cat that portended doom. Miriam dismissed it as fancy, but she began weaving protective charms. Bundles of ash twigs and silver coins hung from the eaves. The turning point came in the spring of 1860. Elias, ever ambitious, decided to dig a deeper well. The Ozarks' karst terrain was riddled with sinks and springs, but water was fickle. With dynamite, a newfangled terror, he blasted into the earth. The explosion echoed like a giant's groan, and from the crater spilled not just water, but relics, pottery shards, arrowheads, and bones. Human skulls elongated and etched with spirals, and the amulet, a fist-sized stone, cool to the touch, inscribed with symbols that twisted like living vines. Elias claimed it as a trophy, hanging it around his neck. Indian junk, he scoffed. But that night, the dreams began. Elias thrashed in sleep, screaming of blue figures dragging him into the abyss. Miriam woke to find the cabin cold, frost-etching spirals on the windows despite the spring warmth. Sarah babbled incoherently, her tiny fingers tracing patterns in the air. Strange events escalated. Crops in the garden twisted into grotesque shapes. Potatoes sprouting eyes that seemed to watch. Visitors reported unease, a chill that seeped into bones, whispers in the wind that formed words. Old Hargrove came trading, his eyes widening at the amulet. That's no Indian trinket, he warned. Osage tales speak of the spiral curse, bound to the land's guardians. Return it, or it'll claim your bloodline. Elias ran him off, but Hargrove vanished that week. His body was never found, only his hat near a cave mouth, spiral carved into the brim. The family fractured. Jeremiah argued with Elias, demanding they leave. The hills are alive, Pa. They're hungry. The twins withdrew, speaking in riddles, their eyes glazing as if communing with unseen forces. Thomas, adventurous, ventured deeper into the caves, returning with tales of glowing eyes and echoing howls. Miriam, sensing the curse's grip, turned to forbidden lore, Ozark witchcraft, passed down from her Appalachian kin. She brewed teas from the amulet's shadow, chanting under the moon. Spirals bind, spirals unwind, release the hold on heart and mind, yet the curse deepened. By summer, Elias's skin took on a bluish tint, veins pulsing like rivers on a map. He spoke of visions, a blue man offering power in exchange for sacrifice. The livestock died horribly, bodies contorted into spirals. Neighbors shunned them, whispers of "which family?" spreading like wildfire. In the tense air of pre-war Missouri, slavery debates raging, loyalties dividing. The Holloways became outcasts, suspected of dark pacts. One fateful evening, as thunderheads gathered, Thomas disappeared into the caves. The family searched by lantern light, the air thick with ozone and dread. They found him huddled, clutching a shard of bone. "It spoke to me," he whimpered. "The curse wants us all." That night the howls surrounded the cabin, a chorus of unearthly wails that shook the soul. As autumn leaves fell like blood drops, the isolation became suffocating. Miriam's remedies failed. Elias wasted away, his eyes glowing faintly blue. The children changed, the twins levitated small objects, Sarah's babble summoning winds. Jeremiah, desperate, rode to the nearest town for help, but returned empty-handed. Folks feared the Holloway haunting. The curse's noose tightened, drawing the family toward an inexorable end. Whispers in the dark promised oblivion, erasure from the world's memory. And as winter approached, the shadows lengthened, hungry for their due. Winter descended on Whispering Gap like a predator, snow blanketing the hills in a deceptive purity that hid the rot beneath. By November 1860, the Holloway cabin stood as a bastion against the encroaching madness, windows frosted with intricate spirals that no hand could have drawn. Elias, now a shadow of his former self, lay bedridden, his blue-tinged skin stretched taut over bones. "It calls me," he rasped to Miriam, his voice a hollow echo. "The guardian, it demands the bloodline." Miriam, her once vibrant eyes dulled by exhaustion, tended him with desperate fervor. She had delved deeper into the arcane, consulting tattered pages smuggled from her grandmother's trunk, spells of binding and banishment rooted in the syncretic magic of the Ozarks. blending European grimoires with native whispers. She ground the amulet into powder, mixing it with bloodroot and elderberry, forcing Elias to drink. For a moment, color returned to his cheeks, but the reprieve was cruel. That night, the howls returned closer, as if the Ozark howler itself circled the homestead, its cries mingling with human screams. Jeremiah took charge, barricading doors with iron spikes. Folklore held that cold iron repelled spirits. He patrolled the perimeter, rifle in hand, his breath fogging in the icy air. But the curse manifested in subtler ways. Food spoiled instantly, milk curdling to black sludge. The twins, Eliza and Abigail, retreated into catatonia, their bodies contorting into spiral poses during sleep. Thomas, haunted by his cave encounter, drew maps on the floorboards, labyrinthine patterns leading to a central void he called the Heart of the Guardian. Sarah, the innocent, became the curse's mouthpiece, her infantile coups twisted into prophecies. The blue one rises, the family falls, erased in snow, forgotten by all. Miriam wept, rocking her, but the words chilled the room like a grave's draught. External threats compounded the horror, with Civil War drums beating, Missouri a powder keg of Union and Confederate sympathies. Bushwhackers roamed the hills, lawless men preying on isolated farms. One band, led by a scar-faced rogue named Cade, heard rumors of the Holloways, witch gold, and descended on Whispering Gap. They arrived under cover of blizzard, pounding on the door. "Open up, or we'll burn you out." Jeremiah fired a warning shot, but the curse intervened. As Cade's men advanced, the ground trembled, caves groaned, and from the tree line emerged shapes, shadowy figures with blue auras, howls piercing the gale. The bushwhackers screamed as tendrils of mist enveloped them, dragging them into the earth. By dawn, only their weapons remained, twisted into spirals. The Holloways, witnessing from cracks in the shutters, knew the Guardian protected its claim. But at what cost? Isolation bred paranoia. Elias accused Miriam of invoking the curse through her herbs. "You and your witch ways!" he snarled, blue foam flecking his lips. She retorted with tears. "I fight for us!" The children fractured. Jeremiah and Thomas clashed over, fleeing, the twins murmuring incantations that summoned poltergeist activity, dishes shattering, fires flaring unnaturally. A brief hope flickered when a wandering preacher, Reverend Hale, braved the snow. Drawn by tales of possession, he arrived with Bible and crucifix. "The devil walks these hills," he intoned, his voice booming. He performed an exorcism, sprinkling holy water that sizzled on the amulet's remnants. For hours, the cabin shook, winds howled inside, shadows danced on walls, forming the blue man's silhouette. Sarah levitated, speaking in tongues. Hale faltered, his face paling. "This ain't no Christian demon," he gasped. "It's older the land's wrath." As Hale fled into the night, the curse retaliated. Elias convulsed, his body arching into a perfect spiral, bones cracking audibly. He died with a final whisper, "Return it to the heart." Miriam, grief-stricken, realized the truth. The amulet must be buried in the cave's depths. The family ventured out at midnight, lanterns casting grotesque shadows on the snow. The air bit like fangs, the forest alive with eyes. They entered the largest cave, its maw yawning like a beast's throat. Dripping stalactites echoed their footsteps, the scent of damp earth and decay choking. Thomas led, his maps guiding through twisting passages. Whispers pursued them, names, pleas, curses in forgotten languages. Deeper in, they found the chamber, a vast dome lit by bioluminescent fungi, walls etched with ancient spirals. In the center, a pool of black water reflected nothing. Miriam placed the amulet's powder into the pool, chanting, "Guardian, take your due. Release the blood, make us anew." The response was cataclysmic. The cave quaked, blue light erupting from the water. Figures materialized, ethereal Osage warriors, their eyes accusatory. The blue man towered, fur-clad horns curling like the howlers. "You stole the seal," it boomed, voice like grinding stone. "No, pay the toll." Erasure. The family fled, but the curse clung. Back at the cabin, visions assaulted them, reliving ancestors' sins, futures of oblivion. Jeremiah barricaded them in as the blizzard raged, howls merging with human wails outside. Perhaps the vanished souls, or the family's own echoes, By dawn silence fell. Search parties, spurred by Hale's tales, arrived days later. The cabin was pristine, fires banked, beds made. No Holloways, no footprints, only spirals in the frost and a faint blue glow fading from the walls. The erasure began subtly. County clerks found Holloway entries smudged, then gone. Witnesses forgot details, memories twisting like vines. By 1861, as war engulfed the Ozarks, the tale faded into legend, whispered, then silenced. But legends linger, dear listeners. In the hollows, some say the howls still carry names erased, Miriam erased, but not gone. To understand the Holloway curse, we must unearth the Ozarks' buried past. A tapestry of fact and folklore where the line between history and haunting blurs like mist in the hollows. The year 1860 poised the region on the brink of catastrophe, its rugged terrain a microcosm of America's fractures. Spanning southern Missouri, northern Arkansas, and bits of Oklahoma and Kansas, the Ozarks encompass some 47,000 square miles of karst plateaus, deep valleys, and ancient forests. By the mid-19th century, it was a frontier of opportunity and peril, settled by waves of migrants from the Upper South, Kentucky, Tennessee, Virginia, seeking land and liberty. Economically, the Ozarks hummed with subsistence farming, timber, and small-scale mining. Families like the Holloways typified this, self-reliant, isolated, relying on the land's bounty. But beneath the soil lay tensions. Slavery existed, though less entrenched than in the Cotton South. By 1860, Missouri held over 114,000 slaves, many in the Little Dixie region bordering the Ozarks. The Holloways, from free soil Kentucky roots, likely shunned it, but war's shadow loomed. Missouri's divided loyalties, Union state with Confederate sympathies, bred bushwhackers and guerrillas, turning hollows into battlegrounds. The Battle of Wilson's Creek in 1861, just southwest, marked the first major Western theater clash, leaving scars that echoed in local lore. Culturally, the Ozarks brewed a potent stew of superstitions inherited from Scots, Irish, German, and native influences. The Osage, original stewards, left legends of sacred sites, spirals symbolizing cycles of life and death. Guardians like the Blue Man, sighted since the 1830s in Douglas County, a wild, azure-hued figure patrolling wooded hills, perhaps a remnant of forced removals under the Indian Removal Act of 1830. Osage tales warned of disturbing burial grounds, invoking curses that erased offenders from memory, much like the Holloway's fate. European settlers layered their own folklore. Vance Randolph, the 20th century chronicler of Ozark superstitions, documented beliefs in witches, haints, and omens. Witches were often healers gone awry, women like Miriam using herbs and charms. Witch balls of glass warded evil, crossing water broke spells. The Ozark howler, a cryptid with bear-like body, goat horns, and piercing cry, was said to herald doom, its origins tracing to 19th century sightings in remote areas. Randolph's Ozark Superstitions 1947 details such beasts as protectors of ancient pacts, blending Celtic wild men with native spirits. Disappearances pepper Ozark history, fueling erasure myths. In 1867, the Brothers Well case in Missouri saw two siblings vanish near a cursed spring, their well echoing ghostly cries, echoing the Holloway's well digging trigger. The 1891 Mad Trapper of Taney County haunted families, leading to vanishings attributed to human or supernatural culprits. The Lost Hollow clan legend speaks of an entire settlement erased in the 1890s, records scrubbed, perhaps by locals fearing contagion. Witchcraft accusations surged in the 19th century. In Boone County, Arkansas, Grandma Buckhorn was whispered a witch, her hauntings persisting. Devil's Elbow tales feature Ozark witches cursing intruders. These blended with Civil War chaos, deserters hiding in caves, fostering ghost stories. Post-war, Reconstruction's turmoil saw records lost or destroyed, amplifying erasure narratives. Native cultural trauma underpins the curse. The Osage displaced to Oklahoma left medicine bundles and spiral petroglyphs at sites like the Bluff Dwellers caves. Ancient habitations mistaken for vanished races. Disturbing these invoked land spirits, per folklore. Educationally, this era's Ozarks lacked formal records, oral histories dominated, prone to distortion. Census takers skipped remote hollows, deeds burned in courthouse fires during war. The Holloway erasure mirrors this. perhaps literal cover-up by fearful officials or metaphorical through folklore's selective memory. Blend fact: the Civil War devastated the Ozarks, with over 1,000 skirmishes depopulating areas. Families vanished amid raids, their stories lost. Folklore filled voids. Blue Man as metaphor for isolation's madness, howler for war's horrors. Eerily modern parallels persist. Unsolved disappearances like the 1977 Daniels family in the Ozark National Forest echo the Holloway's no traces, whispers of cryptids. The Lost Boy of the Ozarks in 1966 fueled tales of guardian spirits. Thus, the Holloway curse isn't isolated anomaly, but thread in the Ozarks' eerie fabric, where history's gaps birth legends, and the land itself curses those who forget its wounds. Beneath the chilling surface of the Holloway curse lies a labyrinth of symbols and psyches, reflecting humanity's primal fears. This tale isn't mere ghost story, it's a mirror to cultural traumas, the hubris of conquest, and the terror of oblivion. Symbolically, the spiral dominates, a motif in Osage art representing eternity, the cycle of life, death, rebirth. For the Holloways, it signifies entrapment. Elias's discovery spirals into doom, contorting bodies and fates. Psychologically, spirals evoke vertigo, the loss of control, Freudian descent into the unconscious, where repressed guilts surface. The amulet as forbidden knowledge echoes Eden's apple, humanity's fatal curiosity, disturbing sacred equilibria. The Blue Man and Ozark Howler embody the wild other, archetypes of the untamed. In Jungian terms, they're shadows, projections of settlers' guilt over displacing natives. The Ozarks, a borderland, amplified this. Settlers like Elias embodied manifest destiny, but the land rebelled, cursing invaders with erasure. Symbolic retribution for cultural genocide. Universal fears pulse here. Disappearance taps existential dread, the void of non-existence. Erased records symbolize forgotten legacies, a fate worse than death in oral cultures. In modern terms, it's digital oblivion, deleted histories in an age of data. The family's isolation mirrors pandemic-era loneliness, curses as metaphors for inherited trauma, generational sins, like slavery's echoes in 1860 Missouri. Thematically, witchcraft and gender interplay. Miriam's gift inverts patriarchal norms, her herbs empower, but label her witch, reflecting 19th century fears of female agency. Salem's legacy lingers, accusations as control mechanisms in divided societies. The curse's maternal transmission via Sarah underscores matrilineal folklore, where women bear cultural memory and its burdens. Human nature's dark facets emerge. Elias's greed blinds him to warnings, a hubristic flaw akin to Icarus. The family's denial escalates horror, illustrating cognitive dissonance, ignoring omens until too late. War's context heightens this 1860s tensions as macro curse, dividing kin like the Holloway's fractures. Culturally, the tale probes trauma's persistence. Ozark folklore preserved pre-industrial worldviews, resisting modernization. The curse's land's wrath, eco, critiques exploitation, blasting wells as violation, guardian as Gaia avenger. In climate-anxious times, it's prescient. Disturb the earth, face consequences. Intellectually, erasure questions history's reliability. Who writes the narrative, victors or survivors? The Holloway's vanishing critique selective memory, marginalized stories, native enslaved scrubbed, leaving gaps folklore fills with haunts. Psychologically, the immersive dread invokes sublime terror, Burke is awe mixed with fear. Sensory descriptions, chills, howls, trigger ASMR-like responses, but twisted to unease, mirroring trauma's somatic hold. Connecting to universal, it evokes collective unconscious fears, ancestral curses as epigenetic trauma, vanishings as abduction anxieties. In a post-truth era, the erased history warns of disinformation, where facts spiral into myth. Ominously, the tale suggests curses aren't broken, they evolve. The Ozarks' guardians may still watch, waiting for the next disturber. What forbidden knowledge do you hold, listener? What shadow spirals in your lineage? As our journey through Whispering Gap fades, the chill remains, a lingering frost on the soul. The Holloway family, once vibrant threads in the Ozarks' tapestry, unraveled into nothingness. Erased not just from ledgers, but from the collective memory, their curse a silent sentinel against hubris. Elias's fatal dig unearthed more than bone. It awakened the land's ancient grudge, spiraling his kin into oblivion. We revisited their prosperity turned poison, the blue-tinned horrors, the howls that heralded doom, historical scars, wars, divisions, native displacements, wove the backdrop, folklore the noose. Symbolically, it's our tale, the peril of forgetting roots, the terror of being forgotten. Yet questions echo, was the curse real, or madness born of isolation? Did the blue man claim them, or did they vanish into caves, their bones spiraling in the dark? And why the erasure? Perhaps to protect us from knowledge too burdensome, shadows too deep. In the Ozarks, such stories don't end. They linger in the wind's sigh, the river's murmur. Next time you walk wooded paths, listen. If a howl rises or a spiral catches your eye, turn back, lest you join the erased. Thank you for joining the shadow behind you. Remember, the past doesn't die. It waits in the shadow behind you.